This is Academy's 1/72nd scale F4F-4 Wildcat, built straight out of the box, no aftermarket, no airbrush. G'day model builders. This build started as a paint demonstration and turned into a surprisingly honest test of whether Artist Acrylics really belong on plastic models. Every colour you see here came from a basic 12 colour set of Artist Acrylics, the same ones I prepared in my How to Use Artist Acrylics in Scale Modelling video. And along the way, the instructions were wrong, the paint scheme changed halfway through, and the model still came together. I'll show you how it's done. Let's start at the beginning. This kit dates back to 1987 tooling, and for its age it actually holds up pretty well. The surface detail is recessed, if a little heavy. The landing gear is distinctive and recognisably Wildcat, but the cockpit is sparse. A seat, a control column, and not much else. For this build, that was deliberate. This was always meant to be a beginner-friendly, out-of-the-box, using only the paint set from the acrylics video, plus a metallic, a clear varnish, and some filler. The goal wasn't perfection. The goal was to show what's possible with simple materials. Interior green here is mixed from light green and yellow ochre with just a touch of black. That mix went straight onto the cockpit, the seat, and the canopy. Painting the interior colour of the canopy now saves you from chasing colour matches later. With the cockpit painted, I added seat belts. These are just masking tape cut into thin strips with a ruler and a fresh blade. The waist belts are slightly wider, with a triangular piece to suggest the buckle hardware. A small rectangle of tape becomes the adjuster buckle. And a few more strips, the same width, represent the parts of the strap that you pull on to make it tight, and the various tabs that go with adjusting the belt. More triangles stand in for the anchors, and a rectangle for the leather patch that sits behind the buckle. The shoulder straps run over the back of the seat, down the front. They are thinner and are detailed the same way as the waist belt. Nothing fancy, just layered shapes. A shade coat, 15 parts clear varnish to 1 part black, locks everything down and immediately brings definition. I finished off the painting with the sandy colour that I mixed up and some metallic. Plus some burnt umber for the leather with black, more to try to hide the fact that the stick was attached to the seat than anything else. I'd gone this far, so I finished off with a little chipping. I'm glad I made a video of this because it won't really be seen once the canopy is in place. The engine is basic but visible, so painting has to do the heavy lifting. The cylinders were painted black, then heavily dry brushed with chrome to pull out what detail there is. The crankcase is medium blue. This is mixed from cerulean blue, white, and a touch of black. The engine bay interior is a darker version of the interior green, just deepened with black to create the shadow. Everything gets the same shade mix as the cockpit. This does two things. It evens out the colour and it visually connects parts that were painted separately, so they read as one assembly once the fuselage is closed. With the engine and cockpit in place, the fuselage halves come together cleanly, needing only light seam work along the centre line. The landing gear went in next. In hindsight, I should have painted it first. Painting inside this wheel well after installation takes patience and a steady hand. But having the gear installed means the model can sit on the bench while the paint dries, which speeds everything up later. Assembly is straightforward. The wings go together well with just a seam scrape and light sanding. The wing roots needed a little more attention. I used heavy acrylic primer here, brushed on to fill the minor gap, and soften those joints so they blend back to the surrounding panel line. One feature I hadn't seen in years is the stand. Useful, but I'm not using it this time, so it leaves a very large hole in the belly. That got filled with epoxy putty, sanded smooth and rescribed as needed. With everything sealed up, it was time for camouflage, or so I thought. The instructions are vague, but appear to show an early war blue-grey over light grey scheme. Light grey here is white with just a touch of black. Blue-grey is cerulean blue, white and a hint of black. To get the soft demarcation used by the US Navy, I mixed semi-transparent glaze of the second colour and brushed it along the demarcation line in a narrow band. Built up slowly, it creates a soft edge, no airbrush and no masking. The canopy went on using thinned clear varnish. It behaves like thin cement, wicking into the joint, but it doesn't fog the clear plastic. I followed that with a little filling at the base of the windscreen using heavy primer. This is where the kit bites. The box art seems to show a late war 3-colour paint scheme. The side panels show an early war aircraft. The instructions show a 2-colour paint scheme, and the decals are definitely late war. This leaves 3 choices. Ignore it and leave it exactly as it is. Repaint it to something else entirely, which is not very beginner friendly. Or stop and find out what these markings actually represent. I went with the last option and did a bit of research and found that these markings belong to a Wildcat from VC-13 aboard the USS Guadalcanal from 1944. This was an escort carrier, so we're talking about Atlantic patrols and anti-submarine work, which means the aircraft wore the ASW2 scheme, which is dark gold grey over insignia white. Suddenly everything made sense, and better yet, the colours are neutral greys, which are easy to mix and easy to control. So I repainted the model. Dark gold grey is just white and black. Insignia white is the same, just much lighter. 2 coats of each was enough for full coverage, which is not what most people expect from Artist Acrylics. The canopy frames were repainted and cleaned up with a sharpened toothpick. Thick framing actually helps here. Clear coat and then decals, only 8 of them. Another clear coat and we're ready for weathering. The revised scheme adds black walkways, more visual interest. Masking went smoothly, paint was easy. Demasking, less so. Paint had crept under in several places because I had rushed. Instead of hiding it, I leant into it a bit. I'd ended up with a slightly lighter mix of grey. I extended the touch-ups into looking like light chipping around the walkways and ammo bays. Weathering later would unify everything. Weathering starts with the same shade mix I used in the cockpit, clear varnish and black, thinned and flowed across the surface so it settles into panel lines. Control surfaces, cowl flaps, wing folds, anything that moves got a bit of extra attention. I added burnt umber, and this gave a good colour for grime and streaking. A slightly stronger mix was used for exhaust stains, and I brushed them back towards the source, which gave a fade to the pigment that was stronger at the end of the brushstroke.
I mentioned that the gear would be tricky to paint, but it went a bit more smoothly than you might have thought. I like that it's black. I'm not sure that there are that many landing gear aficionados out there, but if there are, I'm sure they'd appreciate the Wildcat for being a bit different down there. If it had been an early war scheme, I'd have left the wings clean, but for a sub-hunting scout on patrol, I figured the external tanks were needed. I took the opportunity to add some visual interest with the red filler caps. They're just red spots, done with a toothpick. The white lines represent the text on the caps, but it's really there to provide one more detail for the viewer to discover.
The prop became a small feature of its own. The yellow tips needed a white undercoat. The cuffs were picked out in chrome. And the fine black squiggles suggest stencil markings.
The ID lights were added in a similar way to the fuel filler caps. This time, just layers of silver, then colour. This works okay because the lights themselves are flush mounted. For the blue light on the spine, I took an extra second and channeled my inner figure painter to add a silver and a darker swirl to the blue, which gives the impression of depth. The navigation lights finished off the detail painting.
Antennas came next. They're not really a beginner step, but they're a big visual feature at this scale. The whip antenna and post are fine guitar string, shaped by hand. The wires are elastic rigging line. Seeing them done and knowing what materials are used makes them much more approachable on your next build. The belly windows came last. Instead of the kit parts, I used PVA glue, drawing a clear film across each opening. Thinner, clearer, better than the plastic. And with that, the Wildcat was done. Built out of the box, painted entirely with Artist Acrylics. If you want to see how those paints were prepared, the full How to Use Artist Acrylics in Scale Modelling video is linked below. Thanks for watching, and if you've made it this far and have enjoyed it, please hit that subscribe button. There's more on the way.